Yo, everybody. Welcome to Off Panel, a weekly interview podcast about all things comics brought to you by Sketch.com. I'm your host, David Harper, and this week's guest is the writer of the Skybound horror series, I Hate This Place. It's Kyle Starks. Thanks for coming on, Kyle.
Hey, that's me. I'm Kyle Starks. Thanks for having me on, Dave. It's always nice to be here. It's always a pleasure.
How's the day in the office? How's it going over there?
It's great. Beautiful weather outside.
For listeners that don't know, which is 100% of you, Kyle and I were messing around with fake backgrounds for our video chat right now, and Kyle's currently in an office. I am in my personal office, but he's in a fake office on the fourth floor of some city of unknown name.
Yeah, some mid-sized city. It's my new background.
So what are you doing today? Is today a writing day, or what are you up to?
Today is an interview day, so we're doing that. I will try to get some writing done. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are rough because I have responsibilities as a father to take my daughters to different things, and we generally schedule things on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So hopefully a little bit of writing. I have some deadlines. So,
are you doing a series of interviews today?
No, just I'm fortunate enough in my life that sometimes any piece of work counts as work for that day.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, what do you have to do today? Well, I definitely have to take my daughter to her thing, and I'm doing an interview, and maybe that's all I'm doing today. But I have deadlines, so I'm going to try to write. But once this is over, I only have a couple hours before everybody gets home, so it's tough. You got to squeeze it in where you can. But Tuesdays and Wednesdays are tough for me, basically for anything.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you had some sort of like informal I Hate This Place press junket going on.
Some junket, I wish, but I think that was 5 issues ago, probably at this point.
You can have a press junket anytime you want. You just got to push people. That's what you got to do. Or you just have to say yes to people like me. But anyways, we are here to talk about I Hate This Place, which is your current Skybound series with Artyom Topilin. That's about, I'm just going to read the first listen. After inheriting a farmhouse, Trudy and Gabby are ready to start the next chapter of their lives together. Except it's already home to a mysterious force that's attracted ghosts, aliens, and all kinds of supernatural beings for decades. Now, Gabby and Trudy must play by the house rules in order to survive, living among the most frightening creatures on Earth. And a man named Itchy. That wasn't part of the solicit. He's pretty scary.
Pretty scary.
It is an awesome series. I love it. Part of the reason why I wanted to talk to you is because I am in my end of the year consideration window for my favorite comics, and it is a very strong contender. I love it.
Hey,
it's so good.
We love to hear that.
But I wanted to back up to, I believe, your last visit to Off Panel. I don't remember if it was while we were recording or if it was before or after, because we chat before and after. But if I remember correctly, writing a horror series was not something you were confident about. And Skybound kind of had to say, you can do that, or talk you into it to some degree. Am I totally misremembering that? Is that?
No, there's an origin story.
There's undeniably an origin story, but is that part of it?
I basically I don't know when we were talking, but it was during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And because there were not conventions, because prior to the pandemic, I did a lot of them, with the Rick and Morty convention tour, basically covering a lot of my bills. But I needed work, and I asked Skybound, who'd already done 2. I said 2, they did 6 Sidekicks, and they did Assassination, and I also did a licensed Dr. Pepper. I like Skybound. So I asked him if I asked Kirkman, I was like, is there anything you're looking for? I'd love to do some work. And he's like, oh, you should do that book that you pitched me at New York Comic Con the year before. And I had not pitched him. I kind of asked him writer to writer, what do you think about this as a setting? Not even a story. Wouldn't this be an interesting setting? And he's like, yeah. So I never pitched it, but he's like, you should do that thing. He said, you should do that thing that you pitched me at New York Comic Con about this place, which would now be Rutherford Ranch if I Hate This Place. He's like, but don't do comedy. Don't make it funny, which wasn't really my intention. And strangely enough, it's pretty amusing to me how many people are like, it's so funny. I hate this place. It's so funny. And I'm like, look, I know there's moments of levity in there, but I'm funnier at other things, I guess.
Yeah.
But I was nervous about it because I'd only done comedy to that point, of some degree. And as I'm now many years in, I'm like, I'm not even doing comedy in my opinion. I'm not doing hardcore laugh books. I just do action books that have humor in them, or I do, horror books that have humor in them. But it's this slice, mix everything together. Everything's better if it's got a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
The dramas, tragedy hits harder if you have some bemusement, if you like these characters to some degree. And that's what my thing was with these girls, is like, I really want people to like them at the gate. So they're charming to me. They're very charming and likable. And I guess in some ways, because of my history, like that comes across as funny. But I was like, man, I don't think this book's very funny. These guys are trapped in an awful haunted death ranch, with only people dying around them constantly, the constant death and suffering. So yeah, they kind of pushed me, and I was very nervous about it. I've said in a million interviews, and I'll say it forever, like comedy and horror are very much like weird sisters. They both rely on pacing and setup and payoffs and beats and setting a tone. So I didn't feel like I couldn't do it, but I was very nervous because I was presenting something that was completely different than everything I'd done to date.
The other thing that I think that's underrated about that connection, because like it's all based on timing. It's like, you know, a jump scare isn't all that different than like the end of a punchline or something like that. But the other part that's difficult about it too is it's so subjective. Both of them, it's like horror. It's like everyone has their type of horror. Some people like slasher horror. Some people like supernatural horror. Some people like, I don't know, like whatever the descent is. I don't know. I like The Descent.
Yeah, some people they like environmental scares, or they like monster scares, or they like
atmospheric stuff,
like doom, like a sense of doom, you know. And comedy is the same way, right? Like comedy is super subjective, but I write both. My intention is not to make something well, maybe it's niche, but that anyone could read and enjoy.
Right.
And because of that, when I'm doing comedy, I'm doing high comedy, I'm doing low comedy, I'm doing I mix as much as I can. And for I Hate This Place, like obviously that was an intention, because I could do whatever I wanted here. Like the setting is so perfect to do any type of horror, any genre of horror. And it was like a sandbox for me to offer layers to people to make it, I think, more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Accessible?
Like, yeah, more blanketly, like more generally accessible, right?
Yeah. Well, and I do think it's interesting too. One of the nice things about comedy, and I would not describe I Hate This Place in any way as a comedy, but I would say it has comedic elements. Like, you know, I laugh. There are parts that I laugh at, but sometimes it's like, I don't know, like if you think about it, like sometimes when you're scared, you start laughing at things that are just ridiculous. And like, so sometimes that happens. But the one thing that's nice about comedy, well, one of many things that's nice about comedy is that it layers over other genres really nicely. So it's like one of my favorite horror movies and one of my favorite comedies is Shaun of the Dead. Sure. And I would say that is both a horror movie and a comedy, and it's really hard to delineate. I would say yours is more delineated than that, but it is, you know, going back to the Kirkman of it all, I do think it's funny. It's like, you didn't go in thinking you were pitching him. You just thought you were having a conversation with Kirkman about it. I think the funny thing about that is I wonder if, like, for him, any conversation is, like, contextualized as a pitch accidentally. Well, not accidentally, but just, like, by nature.
I mean, probably, right? I would imagine, though I have no idea, that if you're a Robert Kirkman, that everyone always just wants something from you, you know? So if someone's like, hey, I'm good friends with Chris Schweitzer and Matt Kent, and like we talk story, but it's always just like, you know, it's just talking story, right? And I wonder if for Kirkman, like, for many people that's disappeared. Like if it's not those who are close to him, who are pre-existing relationships, if everything feels like somebody wants something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't answer that. I know that he's always very kind to me, especially New York Comic Con, and I consider him just a good Midwestern boy who made good, which is what I'm trying to do. I hope that he didn't think that I was just wanting something, because I don't. Like, that's not how I live. But I thought in the moment, because the thing is, like, here's the thing about that moment specifically, is that New York Comic Con is so busy,
yeah,
that there's no talking to your peers. Like, you don't get the same sort of. And for whatever reason, I've been listening to this podcast, which talked about Skinwalker Ranch, which is a very similar. It's very similar to Rutherford Ranch in that a lot of crazy stuff of different genres happens in this one place. And I just thought, I wonder if this works. Like, if this is a good idea. And I sort of figured out he was the one who talked to me. Like, he was the one who I had, and I just thought, this guy knows what a good story is. I think he is. I think he's bulletproof. I think he knows exactly how to tell a story exactly the way he wants, and they always work. And I respect that immensely. I think it's hard to always be good. And I think he's always good. And that's it. So I don't know. It's so funny because it's funny, like, when he's like later, when he's like, oh, you should do that thing. And I was like, I didn't even, but I thought, I was like, you know, at New York Comic Con, I think he said, I would greenlight that if I could, I'd greenlight that right now. And I was like, I don't know what that means. Because it didn't make any sense to me.
Sure. You just thought you were having a conversation. That's the thing I think is funny, though, is it's just like how different those experiences are. It's kind of like the subjectivity of horror. You are, Sex Castle is an action comedy. Assassination is an action comedy. Like, I don't even know what you'd call Six Sidekicks. Six Sidekicks is like a mystery action comedy.
It's an action mystery comedy. Everything, like, I feel like you put comedy on the end.
Yeah.
Like, that's fine. Like, I can't argue. But, like, it's like action comedy mystery. Old Head is a action horror mystery or comedy. You
gotta throw the word basketball in there somewhere.
Basketball, I can't though, because it always, like, no sales if people know there's basketball in it.
That's stupid.
It's stupid. Dead of Winter is a horror comedy.
Yeah,
it's interesting, like, because it's like, man, like I have so many horror books I'm doing right now, and I was like, I thought, like, I Hate This Place was like the first one. I was like, I already did two before I did I Hate This Place.
Yeah, with
Old Head and Dead of Winter, but I just didn't think of them. I mean, they're horror, but it's like they're not scary. They're not scary. You know what I mean? Yeah.
They're not like they don't have straight horror elements to it. But I guess going to that is like, why did you want to go the horror route? Like, was that something that you just happened to have? Because it sounded like, you had the Skinwalker Ranch thing. No,
it was very intentional. Again, that would have been. I was having conversations right before the pandemic. I really. Let's look. I'm going to open up I'm going to pull the curtain back on my heart. I really thought each book I did was better. I believe this. I think each book I do, I get better. But my audience wasn't growing. Like, it was plateauing. Even as I'm working with Erica, as I'm working with Schweitzer, and making two banger Mars Attacks and Six Sidekicks, I think are just two absolute banger books. And the audience, even Rick and Morty, like, my audience didn't grow a lot from doing Rick and Morty. And I really, after talking to another editor and Kirkman saying specifically to me, don't do comedy, I really feel like comedy is a dirty word in comics. I still think that. I really think it's a bad word because it's so subjective, one. Two, I'm generalizing. Let's say 75% of all books that are air quotes comedy are not funny. They're not good. I'm generalizing. If you did a comedy, I'm 100% not talking about your book. There's no way I would say that about your book. But I think because of that, people get burned, man. I think there's a handful of guys who consistently do humor well. Chip, Russell, Evan Dorkin. I'm definitely forgetting like two. But I think there's some guys who you're going to get something, but they have built an audience, or they worked on such big books because of people they worked with, that they kept growing, right? They were able to keep growing. Ryan Brown, I think Ryan Brown does comedy really well. Anyway, there's a lot of dudes that do it, but I think it's a very small group of guys who consistently do it good. And because of this, I was like, you know what? The most important thing to me is I make things that are read.
Right.
And you know what it was? And here's what it is. I'll even say this, is that Image was putting out Old Head, and they said, which I thought was weird, they're like, how many copies should we print? And I'm like, that's not a Kyle decision. Like, I got this email. I'm like, that's a you guys decision. I have no idea. And they're like, oh, well, based on your other books, we're going to print 4,000 copies of this book.
Yeah. And
here's the thing. Look, that's a lot, I guess. But to me, I'm like, that's my legacy. You know what I mean? 4,000 people. How small, like, what is that per state? You know what I mean? Like, how many copies per state? And it hasn't sold out. And it's like, well, that's upsetting, because what I want more than anything is for people to read my work. And I want to have a legacy, which is what Old Head's about, by the way. It's about legacy entirely. Not coincidental, probably. So the thing is, like, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should try not to do comedy and see what happens. And what happened, hilariously, is that it was my best-selling book to date.
Right.
But that was over the pandemic. And over the pandemic, I also did a book called Karate Prom, which I gave away for free. It was because there's no free comic book day, so I did this like 32-page book. It's like a YA action rom-com.
And it's amazing, and you should read it.
Unavailable presently. Things are happening.
You should not read it. You should read it at some point.
Keep your ear out, because I think there will be an announcement soon. And I just like, man, I was like, this is what makes me happy. Like, I more than anything, my legacy is like, if I can entertain people, if I can bring them joy, if I can put a smile on their face. So I was really at a point where I was like, maybe don't do comedy anymore. But I almost immediately was like, I think I'm still going to do comedy. I just want to do everything. And this showed me that I Hate This Place showed me that I can do the other genres, which I've always wanted to do. But also it's like, man, if you can bring any joy into this awful world,
Yeah.
like I like that would rather, I'd love to have sales, and but I want readers. I mean, that's the thing, it's not even about sales. It's not even about sales. I just like don't want to make things for the void. Like that's not what I want creatively, is to make things that aren't seen, aren't read. But yeah, so it's like I had a moment where I was like, I think comedy's a bad word. I do think in the future I will never ever promote a book as a comedy, because I don't like. I think they're humorous, but I think comedy is a bad word. And it's, as I think, and again, I hate this place. I think it has these moments. If someone's like, "Hey, what's the funniest moment in a movie? What's your favorite funny moment?" I bet it'd be like some stupid Arnold Schwarzenegger bit.
Oh yeah.
Which like isn't a comedy, right? And like, that's what I like. I like it when these things exist. I think everything should be together. I think there should be drama. I think there should be tragedy. I think there should be comedy. And the comedy stuff is like, well, maybe I'm stronger at that, or maybe it's more visible. I don't think I'll ever do something like drop dead serious. I just don't think I have it in me. But I think it's an Arnold Schwarzenegger action movie, right? There's a place for that. There's a time and place for all of this.
Well, and I think the funny thing about it is, I brought this up a number of times on the podcast. I think it was John Layman who said, like, we were talking about the genre of chew, and he said something along the lines of like, what genre is life?
Yeah.
It's like everything simultaneously. And I mean, that's true. And I think that's true for a lot of your stuff too, is like even something like Six Sidekicks or like Assassination, like those are comedic, but they aren't strictly comedies. That's, I mean,
Right.
The funny thing is, so, you're talking about, what do you think of when you think of like funny parts in movies and stuff like that? When we were talking about comedies, for some reason, the first thing I was thinking of over and over was the movie Logan Lucky. Have you ever seen Logan Lucky?
Sure.
I love Logan Lucky.
I feel like is not a comedy.
Not a comedy, but it is
funny.
comedic. It's very funny, and it's got a ton of really good lines. And that's
So many.
But I think that's it, the interesting thing is like it's not even necessarily about whether or not, like, part of the reason why I think I hate this place is smart. I'm putting on my strategy brain right now, Kyle.
Oh, okay.
Is that to a certain degree, it's like you look at what you're talking about with I hate this place, and to a certain degree, I wonder if some people are like, this is funny, but they emphasize that it's funny because it's you, and it's like you are connected to comedy, and I think that's kind of an interesting thing. I actually had a question about Karate Prom. Do you know how many people downloaded it?
Not at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Not that many. I mean, I say not that many. I don't know what the average number of pay what you want. What are my mid-tier comic creators?
Well, I don't know. Like, I'd be interested in knowing if it was more or less than that print run for like Old Head, because that's the.
Oh, it's less.
It's less. Okay.
Yeah, and I really thought, like, I'm like, hey, this thing's free. It's just a weird time in the world. It was worth the effort.
Yeah. Well, specifically with the horror route, so I Hate This Place is kind of a. I don't know.
Let me hold it. I want to say real quick. Another thing that I thought of is that I did a signing in a store again over the pandemic, and sort of each store. This is another thing, like maybe comedy. Like I'm rethinking comedy, right? And every store like has a book that they kind of sell more than it's like their. You know what I mean? It's like, this is our book.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, we sell how funny my I Hate This Place namesake forebearer. Like, we sell I Hate Wonderland. It's our number one book. We never stop selling it. And I said something to the guy. This is like the manager of the store, the owner of the store. I came around. I was like, oh, it's like, you don't have a problem because it's it's a comedy, right? And he's like, oh, it's funny that he thought, he's like, it's funny. I never tell people it's funny. I never tell people it's a comedy.
Mm.
Isn't that interesting? And so I was like, I feel like I'm onto something here. And I think I am. I think comedy is a bad word. Like I said, I don't want to stay on this, but I think for the direct market, the mass readers, I think comedy, you've just been burnt too many times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And also, I think there's a lot of things about how comic people like consume things. If you tell them how they should feel about it, they will not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway. So it's like, that was another thing. It's like, man, that's interesting. I'm doing a horror comedy for Dark Horse that I hope is announced soon. And like, I'm like, don't say comedy. Is it amusing? I can't help myself. I want it to be fun. You know what I mean? I want it to be fun. But I think also, like, if you look at almost everything I do, that's not everything, but things that start funny, like, I sort of put the laughs in the front, and then it will become more and more serious as it goes on. And I think, like I said, that's just setting up layers. It's just setting up the drama and setting up potential tragedy. And you want to like these characters to start, and then you do terrible things to them.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So sorry.
No. It's honestly, like, I find this really interesting. I mean, I'm talking to Chip Zdarsky as opposed to, I don't know, Chip Kid. There are other Chips, but Chip Zdarsky on the podcast.
There's only those two, though. There's really only those two.
I'm talking to him on Monday, and it's funny because one of the questions I got from a listener is, it was about the idea that maybe, like, he has to reframe himself as, like, the serious guy instead of just being, like, the funny guy. And the interesting thing is I asked him that two podcasts ago, and, like, I don't want to speak for Chip, but I very much got the impression that he was, like, basically tired of that perception. And it is
that he framed himself, or
no, like, just tired of the perception that he's, like, the funny guy and that's all he is.
So during all of this crisis, I consider Chip a friend. I like him a lot. And I sort of sent him a DM, and I was like, ha ha ha. I was like, hey, what's the secret? Like, what's the secret to go from comedy guy to respected direct market creator? And in true perfect Chip manner, he responded, hell if I know.
Right, Daredevil.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough.
Daredevil's sober enough that no one will think you're comedic after that.
How do you get Daredevil, though, if you're... The thing is, like, Chip is so talented. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Look, Kirkman's first book was a comedy, a really dumb comedy, Battle Pope.
Oh, yeah, you know? Yeah, yep.
So it happens. I don't... It's like, in my head, I'm like, I'd like to make that transition to that, but also, maybe not. You know what I mean? Like, maybe not. Because... if my legacy is that I guess I gave 4,000 people a year 45-minute laugh is kind of worth it, probably. Like, just for them to, if I give you 45 minutes worth of not being brought down by how awful things are, then that's pretty good too, I guess.
I will say that Old Head, I did say publicly in the world that it has the funniest moment in the history of comics when the monster gets crossed up with Dracula's head and it breaks his ankle, and that made me laugh for a good solid 5 minutes. It was amazing. All right, let's talk about I Hate This Place.
Sorry.
So I'm trying to think of the best word for this. Instead, I'm just going to say orgy. It is an orgy of monsters. There's a ton of different stuff. There's the Horn Man. There's ghosts. There's aliens involved. There's all kinds of stuff. I think that's one of the interesting things about haunted houses as a concept is haunted houses can be kind of whatever you want to be. They're like Pandora's box of monsters, of horror situations. And there's also no easy solutions to it. It's unless you bring in an exorcist and it doesn't always work out. Actually, it seems like it rarely works out, if I'm being totally honest.
It never works out.
So why did you want to go the haunted house route with this, your first purish horror story?
I mean, so for me, it's the haunted house is, it's not even haunted, it's a haunted ranch, which is crazy.
Right.
The idea of it being this huge space that sort of suffers from all these things was really interesting to me. But the idea of this place having all those things is what really attracted me to, because it's a smorgasbord. As I said earlier, there's some sort of dark, I'm doing air quotes, dark entity in the woods. There's ghosts. They're dangerous, right? They're dangerous ghosts. There's monsters in the woods. There's lights in the sky. I can do whatever I want. I can tell whatever. I open it with I set up a slasher. The immediate efforts of the first arc are a slasher, murderous ghosts, which are very zombie-esque, and that each one is a dangerous threat, and monsters. Those are the three things that I do in the first arc, and it's that's just such a small percentage of the stories I can tell, because I can literally tell whatever I want. I've set up this thing where there's strange phenomenon and it's all the phenomenon. And we maybe haven't necessarily seen all of them yet as of that first arc. And so that was really the attraction, is that I could do so many things. It's not just a haunted house. It's all these things. And that was what attraction, let's push all these genres together and see what happens when they mix up. What happens when there's a slasher and there's a monster? What happens when there's sort of the zombie trapped phenomenon with the you have to leave, all the home invasion plus. That's what really interests me, is that is that I have unlimited options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that too. Although it is funny, I described it as a haunted house, and I think that's good shorthand. But it's kind of like the inverse of a haunted house, because it's like that's like the safe zone.
It's the safe spot, yeah.
Yeah, and like everything around it is like the danger zone. It's like you got to stay in that, otherwise you're going to be in danger. And I do like that. I mean, like one of the things that I think is interesting about the way that you're doing it is you can put the main two characters are Trudy and Gabby, who we're going to get to in a second. You can put them in any situation. You could bring literally anything. Let's say spider monsters out of the ground, and like that's an option because it is a sandbox for you to basically go off horror wise. And I think that I don't know, that makes it really interesting because it's like you really never know what's going to come next.
Yeah, anything can happen. Literally anything can happen. And that's the attraction to me.
Yeah. So why were Trudy and Gabby the way into the story for you?
I don't know how to answer that. Trudy and Gabby are great. You want two really likable characters. I for sure thematically love what will you do for love? What will you do for your loved one? Also, for me, that's number one is
the power of love.
Well, it's more of how far will you go? How far will you go for this person? And secondly, to me, as a husband and as a father, is that there's nothing scarier to me in real life than my loved ones being in danger. There's no monster. There's no noise in the dark. Nothing is scarier than, for me, and I think that's especially true for Trudy, but it's 100% true for Gabby because they love each other so much, is that the idea of the other one in danger is so upsetting. And Trudy's whole thing is that, of course, she's great for Gabby because she will always protect her.
Right.
Like, that's all she cares about. But yeah, that to me is actual horror. Like, monsters are scary. The horn, who knows? Horn Man, what does he do? Who knows? At this point, it's so who knows? I know what he does, but it's so like, you know what I mean? But it's like what's really scary is that they keep finding themselves in danger. And a big part of the first arc, I'm not doing spoilers. Issue 5's been out for a couple of months. Guys, read my book.
Yeah.
Trade comes out in December. Get your orders in. I think you can Amazon it already. I don't know. Is that Trudy has been a survivalist her whole life. She's like sort of a doomsday prepper type, but it's like none of that prepares you for this. So like her whole world has been pulled out from underneath her, that she took such pride in being a protector to Gabby, because she loves her, you know, and like that's all she wants is for everyone to be alive, to be in the situation where those skills are useless. They have no value. It's upsetting to her because like now not only is her loved one in danger, it's because of her.
Yeah.
And she spent her whole existence like wanting to overcome danger. And that's really interesting to me because I think about the same thing as like with my daughters, with my wife, like really how capable am I? If things got pushed, like really how capable am I? Like in my head, I go, I'm a man and they're my family and I'll protect them like a big, you know, like a big lion. Lion men don't do anything, but you know what I mean? Like it's like if push came to shove, like I'm just a guy, right? And I think for Trudy, it's like it's very upsetting for that to be crumbling onto her. And also like, I like them. They're great. They're likable characters. I think Gabby's a nonstop optimist. I love the idea of an optimist and a survivalist being thrown onto the worst place on earth because it really challenges your beliefs. And you know, Gabby is infallible. Like she refuses. Like I think through the course of the book, and I'm writing the next arc obviously now. I think you can see like she crumbles because things keep getting worse and worse. But also it's like she never stops. It's just who she is. Her life's been terrible until she met Trudy, and she's just going to keep being optimistic because it was terrible, and then she saw it get better. And I think those are real horrors to me.
Mm-hmm.
But why them? It's because of that, but also because I think I created two likable characters, and I want to spend time with them. And also, people hate to see likable characters suffer, so perfect for horror.
Well, yeah, and you know, to speak to all that, you also it's like horror is interesting on its own, but it's like you kind of have to have investment, otherwise there's no real stakes. I mean, that's not to say that there aren't horror stories that work with like bad people as the leads or something like that, but like I mentioned Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead, I love the cast. I'm invested in their success. Or, you know, and on an occasion, there are characters that I'm invested in getting ripped apart, and they do successfully get ripped apart.
Yes.
And, you know, there's value in that as well. But It's funny. I was going to bring up like the differentiation because Trudy being a survivalist, like you said, I don't know. I'm a little worried about her sleep schedule if she was a real person, because she's like, I'm going to protect my wife. And then she sits outside, stays up all night, and then walks around. I'm like, Trudy needs to get some sleep. Survivalists ain't going to last very long if they're not sleeping ever.
No, I don't think there's much sleep. There's each night when the zombies come, the cows, it's a cattle farm, the cows moo.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to sleep, and I think Trudy hasn't because of her overdeveloped sense of protection. She definitely gets very little sleep. Like I said, I'm on the second arc, and I'm like, man, she's definitely stayed up all night here too again.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people not sleeping in it for sure, and I think some because they're scared, but others just because they want to know what's going on. It's so like you're so entranced. It's so interesting, like what's going on too, that you'd be like, how am I going to sleep when there's phenomena happening right outside my door? That's terrifying, but also like I think Dante doesn't get any sleep.
Yeah,
he for sure does not sleep that day. Yeah, he's just so stoked about it. Yeah, there's not much sleep for sure.
And now, a word from one of our sponsors. You may have heard of Zoop, the new crowdfunding platform, and they have some amazing comic campaigns running now, including Faceless and the Family from the Eisner-nominated Matt Lesniewski, The Whistling Skull from Tony Harris and B. Clay Moore, which continues their work on JSA Files and DC Elseworlds, and the completed Saucer Country, an omnibus collecting the whole series from Paul Cornell and Ryan Kelly. Better yet, with Zoop, there are no buggy add-on pages and surveys after the fact. You simply throw rewards and add-ons into your account and check out. Head to zoop.gg to support the live campaigns and sign up for launch alerts for what's next. Also, Zoop is taking submissions, so creators, reach out at hello@wearezoop.com to learn more. And now, back to the show. While I was going to bring up the differentiation, I think one thing that's also true about those two characters is they complement each other really well. Because, like, sure, Trudy is a survivalist, and she is having kind of an identity crisis throughout the first arc because it's like, how do you shoot a ghost? It's like, what's the shotgun going to do against the Horn Man? Jack shit. That's what it's going to do. Yep. And so she's like, how am I can't protect my wife. And like Gabby's belief in her kind of helps her get through it. And like, that's one of the nice things is like, while they're differentiated, they're also complementary in the way that like best couples and also best characters are.
Yeah.
And that's nice.
It's a good relationship.
Yeah.
And I think like, my wife and I are different, but the same. And I feel kind of the same way about Trudy and Gabby. Is like, they're very different, but they're also the same because at the core, their beliefs are the same, are identical, which is this person is my world. And I only want them to be happy and safe and well. And they'll both do whatever it takes to get there.
So this is a much larger question about, I mean, you're not going to be able to get into this in specific, but like, there's always like the rationale part, like the why is this happening? All the stuff like that. Is yours, I mean, I kind of get the impression that your story is less about like, what is the root cause of this and more about like the journey they're on. Is that a fair statement?
For this first arc, for sure.
Okay.
Less true. So the second arc, there is all answers.
Ooh.
And maybe the end of the series too.
Oh, okay.
Spoilers. Maybe only one more arc. I had a long-term plan. I thought that I would get 15 issues. I'm not going to get 15 issues. So I'm kind of smushing everything into 5 issues, which kind of sucks. But I always had an idea for the end of this book, for the finale of this book. Mm-hmm. I was hoping to play more with the journey. But I don't think I'm not going to have that opportunity. And I'm sort of trying to figure out logistics. I thought I had another year to figure out now. But I always had a knowledge of why things happened because I'm not George Romero. I don't like it just is like it just happened. I can't do that. You
need an explanation.
I need an explanation. And I thought when I telling this whole story is that because I knew the very, very end, I was like, isn't it great? It's these two separate forces that shouldn't ever cross or crossing. And I was like, I love it too much. So this for sure. And again, I thought I was going to have a little bit more space to play with that journey. I think issue 6 and 7 it's still that journey. Hold on, 5, 6. Yes. 8, 9, 10 is going to be a ton of exposition, which I hate writing. I just hate exposition. So I'm trying to do it in a way that's interesting, but it's a lot of interesting. And then a big climax. That's probably what we're looking at the end here.
Wow.
So it would have been, yes, I would have, if 5 more issues would have been another I would have loved it. I would have loved to have another 5 issues where it's just because the first arc to me was all set up. You want to know. You want to know when they leave their house and it's dark. There's threats.
Right.
Right. So I don't have to explain that. Like all I have to do is have someone standing outside in the sunset, and the readers will go, "Oh shit," you know what I mean? Or if you hear a help, you're like, "Oh shit," and that's what you want as a horror, as options in horror, is that I can keep introducing. I introduce things at the end of issue 5 for the next issue that are clearly forthcoming, and just be like, "Oh, when you see that, you know something bad's going to happen," and you want that shorthand to increase the stakes, right? And I wanted another 5 issues of doing that. I wanted another 5 issues of like introducing new, different genres, which I do for sure, I think. But my intention was to lead to a final 5. I want 15 issues. I'm probably only getting 10. It was subjective. Like there might be another ones, but I can't live like that. I knew what the end was going to be. I have to do the end.
Yeah, you don't want to get yourself in a position where it's like the story ends on a non-ending.
Right.
And that's the tricky part. But I wanted to bring up something that I like in particular. I haven't really seen that many other people talk about it, which is too bad. The backup comic strips, which are written and drawn by you, which I think are great. They work in 2 ways. First off, it shows what Trudy and Gabby's lives were like before all this. And then second off, they're great. I just think that they're really great. They are funny, but they're also just good character work. And it kind of just gives you a vibe of the type of supportive that Trudy and Gabby tend to be. Why was that something you wanted to include in the story?
There's not a like a super enjoyable answer to that. Skybound loves back matter. The back matter for 6 Sidekicks, I think, is outstanding because Chris Schweitzer loves that stuff, and we really went all in on it. And because of the sort of because it's like it's big Hollywood, and all these characters work on different shows, and there's different ways. Like the opportunity to do unique things or fun things, I thought really presented itself. Skybound loves back matter, and like we're going to do back matter, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I'd like to do more fun stuff like that, but I don't know what to do. Benito Serrano is writing essays for every book about things that are related to that issue. But I wanted more. I also feel like it's another thing where it's like these characters are real people, like they're people, and to see them sort of like they were once happy, but they're still themselves. They were still the same. You see the same characters. I just like that for the idea of a horror that if you're watching a horror movie, you really only see these people in like that
crisis mode.
In that bad moment, like in the bad moment. And because of the nature of Rutherford Ranch, like I don't think there's a lot of, hey, we should take coffee on the porch. You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't think it's nonstop bad. I think mostly the night times, every night is bad. So like they have their daytime, but I think they are running a ranch. I don't think there's fun. So the idea is sort of like they were fun and to stretch these characters. And again, the more relatable, the more human they seem, then one hopes the dangers they feel realer. You know what I mean? They feel like the stakes are high. It's so funny that you brought it because like no one has said one thing to me about them, not one thing. And I was like, I'm going to do them though. I was worried that Artyom would get mad that I was drawing basically, the characters that he designed. He's never said anything either. Is that he'd be like, why are you doing my job, man? In the back of the book. When I was at C2E2, Schweitzer, who almost always sits next to me at shows, but wasn't. He was like behind me at the end of the show. He's like, man, so many people. He's like, how was it to hear about how people like your strip? And I hate this place. I'm like, I didn't hear. No one said one thing to me. I haven't heard one thing. And he's like, oh, so many people came up to me and they're like, oh, I'm like, okay, I don't know what to say.
I like them in 2 ways. One, like, again, they're funny, but they also really do help with the characters. Because I'm trying to remember if it was I think it was the second issue where there was the one about the young coworker that was having troubles, and like they're 2 different brands of protectiveness. Like that's important character work. It shows that Trudy is going to like be a badass, and it shows that like Gabby is going to go out of her way to make this girl feel good. And like, I think like that stuff is super valuable. That's a bummer. I really like those strips. I think they're really, I'm glad that Skybound like wanted back matter because I really enjoy them. Maybe people haven't mentioned them because they're too busy liking the rest of the book. That's what I'm going to say.
They know about my immense ego, and they're just trying to keep me in check by letting me know I'm doing more than just one good thing, I guess. On this,
I messed up. I'm sorry.
I don't know if I'm going to continue them for the next volume because with this one I was like, like this story for this one, like they tie in sort of. I think issue 4 maybe not, but I had intentions. I don't know what I want to do for back matter for the next 5. It's really, I really want to figure out something clever and great. I think Six Sidekicks really ruined me.
Yeah.
On back matter, doing something really interesting and really clever. It's like I don't know if I'm really clever in that way, but I'm hoping to figure something out. I might do them still, but the way things are happening, it's having so like things get bigger and bigger and bigger, and to sort of, I don't know if they play the same as the events get more and more convoluted and more wild. So we'll see. But again, you know what? If every issue someone was like, love those strips, then I'd be like, oh, I got to figure out the next 5. I got to figure out 5 more.
I am like a natural mark for it. I once wrote an entire column about back matter or like an entire feature on back matter. I love back matter, but
good back matter is where it's at, I think. I'm like opposed. Like because my thing is I just want to read the comic book. You know what I mean? I just want to read the comic and go home. But I've really came around to, and I always think like, you know, Brubaker would get like known noir writers and critics to come in and write. And it's like brilliant, so smart. I can't do that. I can't get John Carpenter to swing in, and you know what I mean?
Maybe you should.
So it's not happening. You got to pay those people. I don't have any money. I'm in comics, man. So like there's all these variants. So it's like I have to do it myself. I have to DIY it. And it's just like I'm not smart enough. I'm really not. I wish I was. I'm not smart that way. We'll hopefully figure something out fun.
I'm going to throw this out there. Those strips are perfect for social media. I don't know if they would ever let you share that, but like as just like a little gateway, like taster of like Trudy and Gabby. I feel like Trudy and Gabby could be like a social media success. Anyway, I mean, it's like most of them are 4 panels, and it's like
there's just little 4 panels. I just want to be like newspapers, Sunday newspaper strips. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I love those strips. They're so great. But okay, I have to bring up, you brought up Dante earlier. I have to bring up Dante because I love Dante Howitzer, a character that's probably not relevant to the story going forward, but is very relevant in my heart. Mm-hmm. I feel like this might be a stereotype, but he feels like the most Kyle Stark's character in the story.
For sure.
What is his origin story beyond the fact that you needed and or wanted a TV ghost hunter in the book? Is that it?
I mean, he serves a function in the first arc in that, again, you want to establish the location, you want to establish the dangers.
Yeah.
And you need a reason to move characters from point A to point B. So in the first issue, I established 3 rules. Which are don't let the ghost touch you, don't go in the woods, and if you see the Hornman, run. Well, I needed them to go into the woods. Like something has to take them to the woods, and Dante Howitzer is the vehicle for that. I also have he's part of the subtext in many ways of how characters sort of engage with even likable characters, and I don't know how likable Dante is, but how people engage with. How especially men engage with Gabby and Trudy. I wanted an element of that because he's pretty dismissive of them and sort of bossy. He thinks he knows better. Dante is funny to me because like it seems like everyone has a different take on him. Some people are like, oh, he's just an incompetent ghost hunter. And I'm like, I'm not for sure he's incompetent. Or he thinks he's better than he is. I'm like, well, that's probably true. He definitely thinks he's better than he is. Because he's putting on a show a little bit, right? He's a showman now. So I wanted a character that would move people, that was also a little bit dismissive of the girls, but I think they charm him. I think he quickly, because he's not really ever mean to them, but he is a little dismissive here and there, because he knows better, right? He knows so much better, even though no one's been in this situation before. But yeah, he's the big action guy, right? Like you got to have action elements. And,
and he's got the best name like ever.
Dante Howitzer. Yeah.
Do you just sit around and like combine real names with like fake name with like objects?
I'm sure I've said this before, and I feel like maybe I said it here. Is like, you know, whenever the time comes, I go, you know, amuse Kyle Starks. You know what I mean? Like, what's a good combo? I notably, you know, for Trigger Keaton, Chris Schweitzer was like, hey, we should do a book called The 6 Sidekicks of Captain Karate, and I was like, that's a terrible name.
That is
the Captain Karate part is terrible. I'm like, we got to come up with a good name, and I think Schweitzer actually put it on his Patreon that we had like this text because we text each other all day. Of us going through the names, and he'd be like, what about this name? I'm like, you're terrible at names. I'm like, it's something like this. We want something like this. So that's me. There's a way you can see it like written out on the Schweitzer Patreon from like 2 years ago, maybe. I don't know. But normally it's just like, let's do a good name. And it doesn't take very long. It's just like one-liners. They usually don't take me very long. I just try to pop myself in the moment.
It has to feel real too. I mean, that's the thing. The difference between Captain Karate and Trigger Keaton is Trigger feels like something you would call a person, and Keaton is a real name. Well, Captain Karate, neither part is real.
It's silly. Yeah, Dante Howitzer. Like you get there's a sort of the devilish Dante. I mean, it's a good name.
Yeah, I mean, we're also like there's a player on Alabama's current football team with the first name Kool-Aid. So. It's Kool-Aid McKinstry, I think it is. And so,
have you seen the
yes.
the Key and Peele?
Yes.
My 14-year-old daughter loves it. So
it
we
so
watch we watch TikToks. I'll save TikToks and we watch them together. And if she sees the little like thumbnail, she'll be like, "We have to watch it again."
Oh,
and I think
good.
the same thing. Like, how much of that was improv? How much of that was improv? I don't know. I think a funny name is a good name. I don't be like, hey man, I have the best character names. I think I have some bangers. I think Dante Howitzer is probably on the top.
It's
5,
good.
Maybe
it's really good. I do want to say though, on the spectrum, the continuum of Dante Howitzer, I think the answer is in the middle. I mean, I think the answer is obviously in the middle in terms of like, is he a good guy or is he like whatever? I mean, the thing is he like a dude who thinks he knows a lot, but he actually does know a lot? That's true. Is he dismissive, but does he protect them when he needs to?
Yeah.
Like, I think ultimately he's a good guy who is like, I don't know. I think that he's had a lot of success go to his head, and like he kind of lost his roots. I will say though that the Jurassic Park line is another Kyle Starks classic. You guys, when he says, "You guys know that scene in Jurassic Park where that guy sees the dinosaurs for the first time? This is my Jurassic Park." I love that part. And
thanks, man. I'm real proud of it. I had to ask if I could use the words Jurassic Park in a comic book.
Interesting.
I mean, they said yes.
Obviously, the answer is yes, but yeah.
Like, can I reference other media? I have no idea. I've been doing this 7 years. Can I say Elton John in a comic? I have no idea.
I think you could probably have Elton John in your comic. I don't know. Do you have to ask Elton John if you have Elton John as one of the monsters or something?
Ask him if he's in it.
Okay, I don't know these things.
No either.
Okay, so let's talk about Artyom Topilin. Is that how you pronounce it?
I'm pretty sure.
So I think he's a perfect fit. He's got like a little of Simone Gagne and like Martin Morazzo in him, which I think fits the book perfectly because it's got like this edge to the real stuff, but he's also very good with the monsters. It's the wrong artist on this book, I think, would have really harmed it, and I think he fits it really well. I think Skybound found him. Why was he the right fit?
So we went through a lot trying to find someone, period. This was the first book I did where basically they asked me for, like I said, he's like, just pitch that idea. And it wasn't me going, me and Erica want to do a book.
Right.
Me and I want to do a book with Schweitzer. So it was the first time that's ever happened where it's a creator-owned thing, and it wasn't like who's going to draw. I think honestly it's the first thing I've ever done where there wasn't an artist probably attached.
So somebody had to be cast.
I'm looking back. Yeah. So he had to be cast. We went through a lot of people. A lot of people just weren't available, which is normally what it wants. If someone who's very good, they're probably working on something else. And at one point, the editor was like, "Hey, what do you think of this guy? Kirkman really likes him." And the drawing that I saw was of like a Eddie Brock Venom, and it looked different. It looked unique and it looked scary. And I was like, let's do it. I also thought maybe if Kirkman liked him a lot, it might give me 20 more issues, So yeah, this is like not Artyom's first book. It's basically his first book. I know for a fact it's his first full-length American direct market comic. He did a short and an anthology for an ice cream man. I think he did some shorts. I don't think he self-published more than a single issue. I could be wrong. So like it was a risk. To me, it's risky. But he clearly can draw a figure. I think he could draw monsters. I think he can do all that. I really believed he could, just based on what we saw before. And so yeah, we got Artyom in there. I know Moisen's not there anymore, but Moisen said repeatedly, he's like, my goal, the best case is that people try to ask for Artyom while we're on the series. And I bet they probably have.
He fits you and he fits the book. And like, that's tough. I mean, as an outsider, I don't know. Maybe you're like, I don't know if he fits me, but I feel like he kind of gets your vibe of like the blending of genres, if that makes sense.
I think what Artyom's characters emote really well.
Mm-hmm.
And for my stuff, that's really important for it to land. So yeah, it's funny because I think he's done Artyom's done an incredible job. I'm so glad that we have him on the series because I think it has a unique look. Lee Lawfridge, I think, has brought. Did I say Lee's name wrong? I didn't, right?
Lowridge, I think.
Lowridge. Sorry, Lee. They just bring a really unique look to it. The combination, I think, is really good. Yeah,
it's great.
It's funny. The thing is, like, it is one more thing that I've done where the art's a little cartoony, a little not direct market. And I was really concerned about that. But it feels like a Kyle Starks book, and I hope it feels like an Artyom book too, because it's his book also. Am I right about his name? You have it right in front of you. Say Lee's name.
It's Lee Lowridge, I'm pretty sure. I was actually just looking at the art. I was just, I mean, one of the things I think Artyom's really good about, and one of the reasons why it really like underlines that it is in fact a horror, is like the violence when it shows up is really intense.
It's visceral, yeah.
It's very visceral, yeah. And like also like I was just looking at this shot in issue 4 of Itchy, and the way that Artyom draws it and Lee colors it, it has this like ultra like manga horror vibe to it.
Yeah. Yes. He does that a fair amount. His character when he wants his characters to be, which we do, when he wants the characters to be really menacing, and there's a couple shots of Itchy in 4 and 5. Spoilers. If you ever read either one, it's not spoilers, I guess.
Yeah.
But he's really like, Itchy's as scary as he should be. And for me, with the character of Itchy, who is a mob hitman looking for money buried on the property, is that to me, there's giant slicer creatures, there's spider
things.
Helps death spiders.
Yeah.
There's ghosts. If they touch you, you have to survive their own death. There's the horn man, whatever he is. For me, it's like Itchy should be the scariest thing here, because
he's the slasher, human, right?
Yeah, he's a slasher. He's a slasher.
Yeah.
And because he's made this choice, right? He's deceiving. He's weaseled his way into these people we like's lives, and he's dangerous. He's chosen this. He's the worst thing on the property for these first 5 issues. And I think Artyom nails that every time. I think he nails it every time.
Well, I think another important part about Itchy as a character is that while I don't think it ever really comes to play, maybe it actually, I guess it does, maybe. He's the one thing that can go in the house.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah. And like that's an important wrinkle, because it's like if you're a 100% safe zone, it's like you need that safe zone to be compromised for it to be really horrific. Yes. And like I think you play that card. I think you all play that card very well. But I did want to ask.
I bet it never happens again.
I can't imagine a reason why it would. Trudy's family certainly will knock.
What?
What? Anyway, so I know you've been asked about this a bunch of times, but I think I do think it's really interesting, the title thing. I hate this place, and its original title, Fuck This Place, which objectively the latter is a better title. Yes. Because the reason why I liked it, and I actually, when it was announced, I specifically complimented that title because it is exactly what I would say in the same situation.
Yes.
And that's like, there's a visceral element to it that I hate this place doesn't necessarily accomplish. Yes. The funny thing is after my column went up, I got multiple messages from retailers saying I can't stock that because the title has an F word on it. And I'm just like,
yeah, like
parents aren't going to care that much. I mean, like seriously, like Hulu shows or FX shows have F bombs in them constantly.
Netflix has several into the fucking world.
Yeah.
So I really fought for Fuck This Place. There was actually sort of an ongoing thing between the team and Skybound, is sort of like, is there a better name? And the thing in my head, I'm like, no, like tonally for what I've written, Fuck This Place is perfect. Because that's what these characters are saying all the time, and they do.
Yeah.
We did lists of names. Maybe for the back matter will just be all the names, the other suggested names I did, because it's emails, like so many. We went back and forth, and in the end, they're like, it's fine. Like, you're right. We're gonna go with it. Like, you're right. And I had, again, Matt Kent was like, fuck's everywhere. It's on TV. Like, it's not what it used to be. And I'm like, yeah, it's not what it used to be. But as soon as anything moved, like, I think the day that the sort of everything sort of moved into Image's purview as the publisher, so to speak, it's complicated. I think they print it. You know what I mean? They're technically printing, and they're doing they print it and then they ship it to retailers or to Diamond or who the fuck, I don't know how it works anymore. I think that day Stevenson sent out an email and he was like, hey, retailers will not like this. Retailers are mad about this. I can tell you that right now. And I know, like, I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about how this book would be displayed on public shelves. Where children, hopefully, guys, let's get kids into the comic book shop. We need it. I know there's nothing there for them, but let's pretend.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I 100% get that. Like, there was no me going, well, what do I care? I want it in shops. Like, I want people to read it. As I said, like, what's the most important thing? And I know also there was like, oh, we'll do it's F asterisk or F asterisk asterisk. And I think legitimately caused an ordering problem that you didn't know. Is it F? Do you still order FU? Is it F asterisk? Like, what are you supposed to put in to even order this?
Right.
And I'm like, whatever. Now, I will say, I immediately said, let's just call it I Hate This Place. And I think I knew this before. But in the moment where I had to make a decision, I didn't think about it. And I think also Stevenson was like, hey, we did this with I Hate Fairyland. And we were able to sell both versions, like, for the length of it. But I was literally like, oh, yeah, I Hate This Place is the same as Fuck This Place, or is the PG version of it. I didn't think about how I'm now creating some sort of fuck/I hate universe with Scotty Young. And I really wish I called it, like, We Hate This Place, just to avoid the I hate/fuck. And someone else will do it too, I assume. At some point, someone will be like, it's called fuck everyone. Yeah, fuck everyone. And then they call it I hate everyone.
Yeah.
That's my one regret, is I wish I would have thought it, because I felt like it was really like I had to make the decision immediately. I think I would have called it We Hate This Place instead. I don't know. I Hate This Place is right in the middle of shelves too, though. So, right.
It's tough. And it's like, I'm not saying, I understand why retailers would not be happy about that for the aforementioned reasons, but it is kind of a bummer because it was one of the few times where I like saw a title, I was like, yeah, this makes sense. Like this, not that it makes sense. It's just perfect. It just felt
No, I'm
right.
nodding. And I said, I really fought for that title. So like I put so much work into it, and then they were finally like we relent. If this is what he wants, which is great. That's what you want from your publisher, is to be like, if this is what he really wants. And then for it to be like, that's not going to...
Well, like, you do it as a variant, right?
Yeah, there's the variant. Which to me, like, that's the real... Like, I'm doing air quotes again. Like, that's the real title. But what's bad? I just want people to read my book, man. They call it whatever they want to call it, I guess.
I saw... God, there was an interview you did where somebody was like, are like the comics the same? And I was just like, why would they be different? It's just a different title. Anyways.
That's a different title. Yeah, like the other one doesn't have profanity in it. They're only doing one cover. They're not reprinting everything twice.
Yeah, exactly. That would be really crazy. A variant entire comic. No,
you know what I thought about doing once for a Kickstarter, because my books have a lot of violence and profanity in them, is if I is one of like the reward tiers would be that I would do like the TV edited version of the book.
Yeah.
Where like instead of saying, I can't remember if I can curse, instead of saying like MF, they would be like Mad Frogger. You know what I mean? Whereas like I'd have to come up with like new like dumb curse words, and I'd cut out whole scenes, and I was like, that's funny, right? That'd be funny. It's also another.
Have you ever seen what Ryan Brown does with God Hates Astronauts?
He's the king of all that stuff. I remember he did for Boil. What's the black and white one?
Blast Furnace.
Blast Furnace. I think it was Blast Furnace for one of the reward tiers that you could back, right? Like let's say the book was $10. For $15, for $5 more, he would draw mustaches.
Yeah.
On certain characters. One of them was he will ship the book to you upside down. And I'm like, he's a genius.
He is, yeah. But for God Hates Astronauts, there was I think it was the 3D Spectacular or something like that. He did a variation where he just relettered the book. And he just changed it and had a different title.
It's too much work.
Well, no, I mean, he just changed, like, everything else was the same. He just changed the script. That was it. And it was just a little different. And I'm always amazed by the things he does. And now, a quick word from our sponsor, It's Bad Idea, and they are back. And this time, I really mean it. It's Bad Idea 2 Part 1, which sounds crazy, but hear me out. This first wave of 7 titles with 15 releases includes fantastic creators like Ramon Villalobos, Tamara Bonvillain, Joshua Dysart, Alberto Ponticelli, and more on superbly titled comics like Escape from Wyoming, a future winner for the best named comic Eisner. Want to read those titles and more? Presumably, at some point, visit Bad Idea's site and find the Bad Idea store nearest you and make the magic happen. And now, back to the show. I have to ask, and this kind of fits given the fact that you said that you're having to drop from 15 to 10. I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of creators lately about this is a very tough time for like launching comics in the direct market.
Sure.
I know it, from our previous conversations, I think one of the things that you've said is basically you don't like staring at sales numbers is not something you necessarily are overly fond of. Does it feel like an unusually challenging time for all the reasons that it might, or is it run of the mill challenging because comics are always hard?
I feel like, because I don't know any better, I feel like for me, it's run of the mill. You know what I mean? Now, again, this sold 30,000 copies. I can't remember. 28,000.
There's a Bleeding Cool article about it.
It's the best Kyle Starks book ever.
Yeah.
I'm like, cool. The other ones were bad anyway. It felt like a backhanded compliment, but I was told don't take it that way. That's not what it means. I think the thing is again, because I'm worried about sales numbers, because I want to keep doing this. When this particular book was an ongoing, I'm doing air quotes. We wrote it with the intention that it would be an ongoing. So when I say I would like 15 issues, I could have done this for 25. But you never know, man. And the number of books, like Choose a great example. What was that Joe Eisma book? Morning Glories.
Yep.
The books that catch like that, you never know. You never know if you're doing that book. This was the first book I ever did where I was like, I know an ending. I can push it back as far as I want. I can push it back 30 issues. I can push it back 60 issues. I could actually do it in 20 issues and then pivot the book into a different thing that's still the same thing, right? So this was the first book I've done, not Rick and Morty, though I did Rick and Morty episodically. I did it. It wasn't an ongoing story where I was like, this is an ongoing story. We said it's an ongoing story. It's the first thing I've done that wasn't a miniseries. So I maybe paid, I wouldn't pay that much attention, but I think miniseries are presently what the industry is leaning towards. Mm-hmm. I think miniseries are tough in terms of how many direct market sales you're going to get, because people will just trade weight knowing it's a miniseries, and there's so many more miniseries. And it used to be you won 6. I did 5 on this. Now they're talking about they want 4-issue mini. You know what I mean? Like even that's shrinking down, though. I don't know if page count necessarily is. I don't know if you're going up to. I don't know because it's new. Or like there was the Novembers and the Dracula motherfuckers that were single shot 80 pagers or whatever the case might be. Like Brubaker does. The state of comics in the direct market, I have no idea, man. I'm just trying to tell stories, and I'm hoping that I sell enough that everybody makes the money, that it was worth them to do it in the direct market. I feel like comics aren't changing. I don't know. It's like they should change, right? Like digital comics should be more prevalent, probably. But if you want digital comics, they go to Webtoons. So why? I don't know. It's complicated, man. So I don't know. I like miniseries because I like beginning, middles, and ends.
Yeah.
And that's the same problem I end with this book, is that I always knew what the end was. And I like the end, and I want to do the end, even if it's a sloppy mess. I hope it's not. I hope it's not a sloppy mess, because I'm smushing more than I would have liked. So I don't know the answer. I think I don't know if my sales are like this. For this, my sales or numbers are so far up. But like if I do another book, is it 4,000? Probably. Does that suck? Yeah, but it's the same as it was 3 years ago, right? Like, it just sucks for me.
Right. Well, I mean, and it wasn't really about, like, what is the overall market. It's more like, how does it feel? Like, does it... And here's the thing, is, like, I think that for a lot of listeners, Skybound / Image and Image probably doesn't have a significant difference in their mind. But they're massively different. Like, Skybound has a page rate. And so,
yeah,
for you, it's like... It's not like you're still getting the same page rate, or like it's still operating largely the same way as it would otherwise. And I imagine that's part of the reason why it doesn't feel that different is like you have stability because it's through Skybound and you're not relying on like, are these sales
the image
maintained?
thing's tough, yeah. The image thing's tough, but it's also only image. The image is the only one where you have that fear of how many am I going to sell, right? I do think when I did Rock Candy Mountain, which I think was 6 years ago, I do not know. I sold 13,000 copies of number one.
Mm-hmm.
That was during a time where image number ones were very hot. They were still doing the $10 trades. If as a brand new Kyle, if I just did Sex Castle 2 years ago and I did Rock Candy Mountain this year, would I sell 13,000 copies? I don't think I would. But I have no way of judging. I have no way of knowing that. To me, it feels like the pandemic in many ways was good for comics because people got back to collecting, people got back to reading. I don't know if that's stuck here in the third year of the pandemic. I don't know if that's still true. Fourth year? I don't even know. Time, who cares?
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I mean, I do worry about if readers are, if we're not gaining as an industry, you know. It never feels to me like it's growing the way it should, as one would like. But
you just made me feel like we all live in Rutherford Ranch, and that our houses are the house and everything else out there.
It's all terrible all the time.
Exactly. I'm like, I'm just gonna stay in my house because my cats are here and my wife is here, and it's all great. But okay, last question about I Hate This Place. You are aiming to wrap the story with 10. There is always that maybe that the sales are still there, that you could get another arc. Are you building it as if you could have like whatever the opposite of an escape hatch is, like an entrance, like to back into the story? If you wanted a third arc, I don't know. I mean, or are you just approaching it as if it's the end?
Probably not. It's probably gonna be the end.
Okay.
There's always a way to figure out more to do.
Yeah.
But
it's an idea with options, that's for sure.
Yeah, I would have liked to have done. And again, the thing is like spending so much time with the same characters, and it is tough for me because I've never done it before. But I mean, I don't want to say it because then like people won't buy it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It's a big exciting climax. That's all I can say. Oh boy, it's like things are happening. Yeah. And again, I hope it's not a sloppy. Trying to make it not too sloppy.
I hate to compete your varying books against each other, but I would say it's either this or Assassination. It's probably my favorite thing.
Really?
I love Assassination. I also really, 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 really love Erica's art. So,
oh yeah,
I mean, I think that's like maybe I would say Dracula Motherfucker is probably peak of her powers, Erica. Yes. But at the same time, like seeing her do like serious action like that was a revelation. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, she was just waiting for the chance.
Yeah,
she was just waiting for the chance to draw murders.
Exactly. So good at murders. Who expected that?
She's just like me. She's an 80s action genre fan.
Yeah.
So we love the gore. Like Eric and I are two sides of a coin for sure. So what a joy.
One thing I really like about the stuff you do though is like, while it's easy for people to put it into the bucket of comedy, it's just everything's comedy. Like we talked about that. I do think it's fun that you always are going in different directions. Like that's not to say that like having a single path. It's like I literally just wrote an entire like I don't know 10 essays on like Brubaker and Phillips and like why their stuff is so great. And when you get a Brubaker and Phillips book, you know what a Brubaker and Phillips book is. Yeah. There's value in that. But I also really like the fact that I kind of like I know the general feel of what one of your books are going to be like, but I'm always surprised by what you come up with next, and it's really fun. That's just a compliment.
That's what we're trying for. I want to be unique. I want to feel different. So I want to make something that's different, but feels incredibly familiar.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's sort of my goal. And I was just talking to Howitzer because we're creative people. We're sort of like it's like even what my like I just want readers, but it's like what is my goal for each book? Because I just read a book that had won some awards, and apparently the awards were minor awards, and I was like, man. It's a fine book, but I don't know. It's like, are the standards so low for what? Like, he does a couple metaphors. Is that all it takes? And I was like, this is just. It took me back when I started making comics, which was 7 years ago, not that long ago. I'm 45. Is that I just want to make something that's moderately entertaining. Mm-hmm. I want for people to put something down and be like, I'm glad I did that, and not like this is a work of staggering genius or this is the best thing. I just want people to be like that felt like that. It felt different. But in a way that wasn't weird or uncomfortable, or you know what I mean. I want it to be very accessible, but also for it to be like, that was good.
Yeah.
I'm glad I did that. And again, if that's my legacy, all right, I'm here for it.
This is kind of an unusual take, but I actually think that sometimes entertainment is an undervalued thing in comics.
Yeah, and basically that's what all it is. You know, like that's literally comics and pro wrestling are the same, right?
Yeah.
In many ways. This isn't high art. You know what I mean?
It can be.
Right. And I'll get there. Day to day, moment to moment, this is just baseline entertaining in the way that you know it's going to be. The superheroes are going to fight. But when you're able to sort of rise above the trappings, that's art, right? Like that's amazing. And so yeah, that's how I feel about that. Like comics, like sometimes you just have to lean into it. I love it when a good superhero comic is just like, I'm a good superhero comic. You know what I mean? Like it just, hey, you know what you're here for. I'm gonna try to do the best version of it you can. I don't want to change the rules. I just want to make something good within the confines of the rules, and not even necessarily good. I just want you to be entertained because that's the job. Or that's the majority of the job, in my opinion. Is like, and I've leaned into that as someone who doesn't want to give up comedy, even though maybe I should have. Like Chip Zdarsky, who's not funny anymore. That's not true. Public Domain's great.
Public Domain is good.
Public Domain has like 3 throwaway characters that are like some of my favorite characters of the last year. I highly recommend Public Domain. Also, just so you can read like Chip doing literally whatever he wants, and it's so low key and Canadian, and nothing really happens, but kind of stuff does happen. It's so quiet, and yet it's still so funny and charming. Very Chip Zdarsky.
That is also a strong contender for my end of the year list. I love it.
And the thing is like I'll have to listen to your next one where you interview Chip, because I don't know if anyone else, like he had the freedom because of whatever that
Substack
thing was.
Yeah,
to do whatever he wanted. He never needed to draw again. You know what I mean? Like Chip doesn't have to draw again.
He told me he wanted to do it. He was going to do it. He was going to do it regardless of Substack. But yeah,
but like outside of Image, and I don't know if anyone would be like, "What is this?" Like nothing really happens. Like yeah, nothing sort of really happens.
Yeah.
And it's like not even the drama parts are very dramatic. Like the sort of legal drama of like, it's so quiet. It's like I wonder if it wasn't Chip Zdarsky and someone went to Boom and it's like, I have this idea, because it really is like such an enjoyable book. No, they'd be like, no way. Like there's no way. And I wonder how much of that played is him going, oh, I can do whatever I want, and I want to do this thing that's different, really.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's so unique in that like it's so quiet. The security guard, by the way, I think is like my favorite character. I don't know. He's like, man, I only get to do one fun thing. And I email him, I'm like, Chip, this is the best character. Like you did the same thing I do, where like you have a good character and then you just get rid of them the next issue or like 3 pages later. And he's like, maybe they'll come back. He's like, they're coming back, Chip. I know your tricks.
I just emailed him last week and I was just like, I just want to tell you the Public Domain is so good. And it was just like completely really random. Good. I just wanted him to know that I really, really liked it. But I do want
to... We really appreciate that.
While we're on the compliment train, I do want to say, you know who I think is one of the best at like recognizing that even though like you can achieve great things with it, and I think he does, that comics should be entertaining. I think Daniel Warren Johnson's one of the best at it. I don't know if you're reading Do a Powerbomb. That current book is so entertaining, but it's also like extremely emotional, and like he's so good at walking that line between those two things. He's
too good. He should be able to draw that good and write as well as he does either. What was the first one he did with Image?
Extremity.
Yeah, Extremity. It's unbelievable. Like that's an unbelievably good book.
Yeah,
I think for Daniel, because like that's what and I don't be like, hey, I know, but like that's the same thing. Is like it's not just, yes, it's a comic, yes, things happen, yes, it's a horror, yes, it's whatever. But like to me, it's like that subtext is so important.
Right.
It's so important that there's more than just like what's the story? They have to survive a ranch. But like to me, it's more interesting. Like again, that your loved one's in danger, and how far will you go, and what will you have to do? You know what I mean? And I think Daniel does that too. He does it really well. Extremity has sort of a treatise on creativity, but I think the thing with Daniel is like he's always trying to, and I don't want to speak for him because I would never. I don't know Daniel, I think, at all. I think maybe we talked once or twice. I think he's trying to make comics like I do. Is that he's making something that he wants to exist in the world?
Absolutely.
And I don't know if there's someone. I mean, I'm doing a basketball Dracula book, right? I don't know if there's someone who's doing it better than Daniel Warren Johnson, who I think is maybe the best artist in comics right now, of clearly making the thing that they wish existed. And I love that. I'm here for it. So I think he's just popping himself, man, and I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
I'm still waiting for him to do a baseball book, but anyways.
Is he a baseball guy?
He's a big baseball guy. I actually played in a fantasy baseball league with him and Ryan Brown, and I won the league this year. Not bragging, just a fact.
I did fantasy basketball once with some comic people, and they had no chance. It was ugly. I think comic people are like they're too busy. They don't have time to focus on these things.
That's a perfect transition because we're going to close with actually a speed round of NBA stuff. So for listeners that have no interest in basketball or the NBA, Kyle and I have much interest in the NBA and basketball. And the league started a week ago, basically, as of the time we're recording this, which is on October 26th. So a lot of interesting things have happened, but I still it's early enough where I feel like I can ask you for overarching takes on your perspective on the way things are going to go. Are you cool with that?
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to try. The league literally just started.
I know, but I mean, you got to feel, you knew going in that like certain teams are going to be good. If you had to pick 2 teams for the finals and 1 team as a champion, who would you pick right now? And it's not the Portland Trail Blazers. You can't do it.
No, it's Golden State. It's still Golden State.
As a champion?
Yeah, I think so. I just don't see who's going to today. 5 games in, less than that, 4 games in. I don't see who could beat Golden State. Those young guys have gotten better. They're going to have Wiseman for they're too good.
Moody's good.
They're all around good, and And I just don't see I don't see who can beat them because the teams from the West that could have maybe beat them in the past, I think they're a tier below.
I think the Nuggets are really. I think when all said and done, I don't know how anyone's going to stop the Nuggets whatsoever. I'm not saying that they're going to win the title. I'm just saying that I think they're very viable contenders in both conferences.
If Murray gets back to being 3/4 of Murray, it's a pretty tough team.
Yeah, Michael Porter Jr.
I think MPJ is kind of a dummy. I think him and Aaron Gordon are kind of dummies, and that's a hindrance to what that team because it's Murray and Jokic are such smart players. I think it's sort of a hindrance to have 2 dummies. I also don't love that they lost Facundo and they lost Monte Morris. They lost a lot of their bench. I don't think they're deep like they have been in the past, which they were really deep. But I think of the last 3 years, of which Murray basically played a season's worth of games,
yeah,
they were 3rd twice and 5th once. So they've added a guy who was on a rocket to be one of the top 5 shooting guards in the league. I think I can say that.
Are you talking about Murray?
Jamal Murray.
Well, he's a point guard, but yeah, I mean, Jokic is the point guard.
He's a shooting guard.
No, that's the interesting thing about their team. I will say, I would agree with you that in terms of basketball IQ, Michael Porter Jr. is not top of the class.
And Aaron Gordon.
I don't know if Aaron Gordon is a smart cutter. I think Aaron Gordon is good at reading the floor, and I think
of course he's a cutter because he's going to dunk it. That's all he can do. He's going to cut great.
But that's the thing, though, is you need creativity around him, which is why it's important, around Jokic, which is why you need Murray. Yeah. Also, I think Bones Highland's pretty good at that stuff. And the rest of the team, you just want people who can execute, this is a very dramatic way of putting it, but execute Jokic's vision.
No, 100%. I thought Facundo was so good for that. I thought Facundo was perfect.
Bruce Brown is such a good fit for that team. I love Bruce Brown.
Great. I agree.
Yeah.
For sure.
And Bones Highland.
I like the Nuggets. They did just get beat by Portland, though, right?
Oh, and they also lost on opening night to Utah, who is 3-1 because the season's weird.
Yeah. So, and I think that's true for Portland too. But I don't want to ruin. I have some Portland lovers. I don't want to ruin the Portland dream that's happening after a year of no Dame. To him putting up 40 every night and them to win.
They got some firepower, man. They got some scorers on that team.
They are shallow also.
They are so shallow.
They lost a lot of their depth. If I had to pick a
Eastern,
I hate doing it. I think Dallas could be really interesting because I think Luka's coming to play this year. I think that team is built more friendly to him than it ever has been.
And they added Christian Wood for free, and he's really good.
Yeah, they added somebody else that escapes me who I really like.
JaVale McGee?
No, but I do
Was
like
it Facundo Campazzo? Because he's on there now.
It probably is Facundo Campazzo. I do like JaVale McGee does feel like he's sort of a magic piece right now, right? He sort of floats around as a good luck charm. And that guy used to be so just a negative, an overall negative to your team. Jumps out of the gym, block everything, can't shoot free throws. JaVale McGee's career arc is pretty great. In the East, I don't want to say Boston, but
you're a Boston fan, but that's a fair statement.
Boston guy, and I feel like Milwaukee's there, right?
I like Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee's probably they're already killing teams, and they don't even have Middleton or Pat Connaughton yet.
Yeah.
Giannis like scored 44 points.
They got Brook Lopez back, which is huge.
Yeah. You know, it's going to be interesting. They got Joe Ingles in mid-year. I actually think he's going to add a lot to their team.
I love Joe Ingles. My only concern with Milwaukee is that they lack. PJ Tucker was so good for them.
Yeah.
And Bobby Portis kind of does similar things in terms of just bringing a toughness because they're a very finesse team. They're a very finesse team, but man, that's a good team.
Bucks are in the mix for Jay Crowder. If they got Jay Crowder, I think he could be their PJ Tucker type.
If they got Jay, I love Jay Crowder as a Boston guy. I love Jay Crowder. I love everywhere he goes.
He's like JaVale.
He's been more likable, probably better. Probably better in the locker room. Jay Crowder to Milwaukee would be. I think you'd have to lock it up to Milwaukee. It's so tough to call. It's just so tough to call this early in the season because you just never know.
Yeah.
Because you know what? If you would ask me this last year, the same time, it's like, hey, well, do you think Boston will make the semifinals? I'll be like, absolutely not. I'd say absolutely not.
They were a mess to start the season.
They were the same. They're the same as they were the year before, which is that they're so young. They're so young, and if they're behind, they just start shooting threes, and no one can shoot threes on that team. And I don't know what I don't know what Ime did for the team, and I also don't know what he did privately after the team. I don't know what he did. I mean, because Brad Stevens is, I think, a genius, and somehow I think his inability to connect individually with the players cost him, because I think there's no one doing better X's and O's. There's only maybe one or two people doing better X's and O's than him. There's maybe one or two people who do better play calling than him. He just lost a team. He could never motivate them.
He's kind of like a computer in human form.
He's kind of like a computer, I think. I also think like there's no veterans. There's never a veteran. The veteran presences were Kyrie. Fuck that. Kimba, who just doesn't give a shit. Like, who knows what's going on with Kimba? What a perplexing.
He's not even in the league right now.
He's not even in the league right now. What a perplexing thing. And they just added these guys that didn't work. And maybe it's literally we had another guard who we thought was going to be great. I'm blanking on names.
Gordon Hayward?
He's not in the league anymore.
Oh, wait.
No, for the Celtics. But they lost. He's part of one of the trades. We got rid of him. And it was the same thing. It's like, this guy should be such a plus because off the bench, he's a veteran presence who's reliable and efficient. And you could see he just like
Dennis Schroeder
didn't give a shit. No, I'll look it up. I can't think of it. It was an old vet guy. No, Schroeder was great. Schroeder was amazing. In fact,
Josh Richardson.
No,
okay.
He's a vet. Josh Richardson's only been in the league like this. Is guy.
He's been in the league for like 8 years. He's been in the league for a while.
In the league for like 36 years. And if you said his name, he was like 38 when he was 36. He's old, and he should have been perfect, but he's just like didn't care. No, Schroeder was great, man. Lakers. I know the Lakers are suffering so bad, and I think they will. But I think Schroeder will turn a ton of stuff around. He's underrated, my guy. I watch him for that guy can play. He can outright play.
Yeah.
It was Josh Richardson. Every time we were like, "What's he doing?"
Yeah. Man, getting Derek White for him was just insane. That guy is always in the right place.
In addition, we're just like, what if we had 3 starting grade point guards? You're not even starting all of them, buddy. It's a mess. Anyway, if you would have said the Celtics, I'd been like, there's no way. But whatever Ime did to get those guys focused and to stop shooting. I mean, literally, they did the things that Marcus Smart said they should do. Hey, what if we took another pass and didn't shoot threes and attack the basket? Which is what me and my wife are yelling. Like, quit shooting threes. You have 2 guys who are perfect, like who can't be stopped. They do Dwayne Wade's and they're shooting threes, which is Brown and Tatum. They're just shooting three. Like, you guys are literally Dwayne Wade. I'm sure it's just like, hey, they're gonna call fouls for you every time. Like, it's easier than shooting threes, and we started doing it, and it worked. We don't have Ime. We have somebody new. You know what I mean?
Joe Mazzulla,
and, who got ejected the other day. It's like, is whatever happened over literally New Year's night that changed that team? Is it still in play? Was that Ime? Was it an ideology that he passed on? I don't know. So it's like the Celtics, who knows what's going to happen?
I think
will they fall apart? Will they go back to shooting threes? I have no idea.
I think the big thing was defensive because they started putting Robert Williams off the ball. I mean, the crazy thing is that I think they're 3-1 and they don't even have Robert Williams yet. And he's like,
Robert Williams.
I would say maybe I don't know. Would you put him as more important than Marcus Smart?
I would not.
I love Time
Marcus Smart's my favorite player in the league.
Oh, okay.
And I also watched 3 years of Robert Time Lord, who we love, could do nothing for the first 3. All he could do was jump. And famously, Brad Stevens says, you have to be able to do more than jump in this league.
Yeah. He's actually a good passer.
No, he's a great. No, that's the thing, is that the year after that, because they were like, oh, we love Time Lord. And it's like, we're like, but he's literally not contributing anything. And he's like, I'm going to play in the preseason, which he didn't need to. It was his 4th year in the league. And they're like, look, he's trying so hard. He's passing the ball. No, Time Lord's great. you could see you can see now, and I love players like this where you can see 5 years later why the franchise liked them so much.
Yeah.
Like it's finally paying off. Time Lord's great. Marcus Smart
is your beloved.
He's my boy. He's literally the heart and soul of that team. Even though it's Tatum and Brown and more Tatum at this point, Marcus Smart does so many things that they are not going to do, and they will do them after he does them. You know what I mean? Like my oldest daughter's on punishment, and so she has to watch TV with us if she wants something to do. And she's always like, look, who's the guy with green hair? It's like, it's Marcus. Like Marcus he'll dye his hair green to start the season, or sometimes whenever they suck real bad, he'll dye his hair green because he's like, boys, let's get on the same team. And like that's not even what he does on the floor. Like he just does little things. If someone gets wronged, and it's always Marcus. If there's going to be a fight that maybe is because of Marcus, he's always the one to break it up. If someone goes to the refs, there's just things that he does. And it's interesting to me because I know a lot of people are like, he shouldn't be Defensive Player of the Year, but it's like, who would you pick over him last year? Like, people who say that have never watched him play, or they've only seen him play twice. You know what I mean? No one plays one-on-one. He's guarding Embiid. My guys. Like, he always... Anyway, I don't want to go on about Time Lord. They figured out how to use him. I mean, it really comes down to he became smart enough to understand what they were trying to do, because they've been a good defensive team since Brad was there, period. They've been a top 3 defensive team almost every year.
They went from like top 3 to like by far the best, though. Yeah. I mean, like that's a major difference. But okay,
sure.
let's move on from the Celtics.
Yeah, sorry. I can talk about Celtics.
I know. Okay, I'm gonna, instead of asking you like awards questions, I'm gonna ask you specifically like entertainment questions. Instead of MVP, who do you think the most fun player is right now?
So there's a lot of dudes I haven't seen. I just saw Orlando, who I think might be a really fun team to watch.
Did you watch Banchero? Is he your guy?
Banchero, I've only seen him play one time, and for a freshman. But I love Ragnar. I think Orlando has been a terrible nightmare. No, he's not my guy. I'm gonna tell you who my guy is. He's not playing right now. That franchise has sucked and has been unwatchable for 7 years. Like, when was the last time Orlando had a player? When Aaron Gordon was the best player on that team for like 3 years.
Yeah, and he wasn't very good,
right?
Yeah.
Vukovic, I love Vukovic, but he's not fun to watch.
No.
But with Wagner and Banchero, like it's on my list of like, I'll watch him. I always like to have a team that's like, it was that the Sacto King, the first Sacto healed Fox team where they had Bielica. I didn't say that
Bielica.
right. Yeah. That was one of my favorite teams because it was just fun, but they were also always in it. Orlando will never be in it, but they might be really fun to watch. Right now, and it should be Luka. Luka's like maybe the most fun to watch, but my favorite player to watch is LaMelo Ball. I think he does so much fun shit. He's clearly enjoying himself, and he is getting better. Like, you can see his improvement. I think he's coachable, but he's out there. I think he's the most fun to watch. I think he's the most fun to watch for me. But I'm a point guard guy too. I love cool passes. I love the finger roll. And I just like guys who kind of do everything. And I feel like LaMelo is, for me, right now, he hasn't played this year, so I'm going off last year more than this year. He's the most fun for me to watch, even if it's frustrating, because frankly, I like that.
Yeah.
That's why I love Marcus. I can't enjoy excellence in basketball the way I think most fans do. Like, Steph is a dream. Steph has been a dream, like a dream all-time watchable player. But at this point, it's like Steph's too good.
He's like a horror movie villain. It's just like he's unstoppable. He walks after you, and he's inevitable.
Like, it's amazing. But I think LaMelo is my guy. If you're like, who do I want to watch right now? Banchero is good.
You know what I think is really interesting about LaMelo is like, LaMelo is interesting because he reminds me of Paul George when he was in Indiana, where it's like, you're in trouble when he's having fun.
Yeah.
And LaMelo, it's
same
like,
for Steph too, honestly.
Well, yeah, but I mean, LaMelo does things that with other people you would think is like irresponsible with the ball. He does like these weird underhand sling passes.
I love it.
And like he some of the dribbling that he does is just like unusually cavalier for an NBA player, and it is really fun. My guy's Ja. Like Ja's number one on my fun list.
Dude, Ja's so explosive, and that's just not like, that's not something that I love. You know who else? Jokic is great. Jokic is incredible to watch. Ja's a great answer. He's so explosive. That's not a part, like, big dunks is never like, and Ja's so much more than that, because he gets you like four insane blocks every year.
I love his attitude. Like, that's the thing I like about him, is just like, he's not they talk smack, but it's not in like a it's just because like it's part of their vibe. It's not because like they need that to get up.
It's a blue collar. They're blue collar team.
Yeah,
they'll always be blue collar, even if they're not. They'll always be blue collar. I like Ja. Ja's a good answer. Ja's for sure a good answer.
Luka's also a contender. The thing I really like about Luka is the fact that like he could do step back threes all the time, and I think some people just think he's step back threes. That dude is a killer on the block. That guy just cooks people with his footwork. It's unbelievable.
He does something good at every part of the game, and he does it in a way that has like a sort of happy. He's another guy. If he's having fun, it's over. That's how the Clippers beat him. That's how the Clippers beat Dallas. 2 years ago? Is because they were like, we're gonna make it no fun for Luka, and you could see he was so frustrated.
Yeah,
it's like we said me and my, like they killed Happy Luka. Like that's how you have to beat him. And he got fat for a year, and I think this year he's like, it's not gonna happen again. But that dude is a joy to watch. I think Giannis. If Giannis didn't complain so much. If he didn't complain nonstop,
you can't say that after saying Luka. Luka complains more than anybody.
But here, there's like it's not how it. Yes, but Luka always does this sort of like wrinkled brow, like really right. Whereas Giannis does that crying, arms out, like, but why? And like that's the difference. Is like it's the best player. It's not even necessarily the best player. There's always one player, and my wife hates it. There's always one player on every team whose job is to deal with referees, and you always do it that way. You're always like, why did this happen? Why did this happen? Right? And Luka's is always like, I think you got that wrong. And he does do it a lot, but Giannis does that plead. He does that Dwight Howard begging for a different call that's there. It's like, it's too much, my guy. It's too much. Like, I know it's your job, but it's too performative. And like, that's not just like, you're so good, you're going to get the foul every time. Play ball.
My all-time number one complaining to refs guy is Dwayne Wade. That guy would miss entire possessions defensively because he was complaining. It was wild.
No, that is true. Dwight Howard would complain when he scored.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He would make a fast break bucket and turn around and like yell at the refs with tears in his eyes. He complained every call. Dwight Howard's one of my least favorite players of all time. He complains so much.
Luka is like the thing I really like about Luka, like I said, is just like, you know, he can do all these different things. I actually think that, and this is a very hot take, I don't know if I've ever seen a more complete and like electric offensive player than Luka. Like it's just like he can do so much. It's like like what if you try to stop his three? Like it's like teams are always like, oh, you know what we're gonna do is we're gonna make him a scorer, and then he scores like 40, and then you're like, oh, we're gonna make him a passer, and then like everybody on the team scores 20. It's just like, how do you stop that?
No, I mean I think in terms of yes, he's gonna be up there with I think Durant.
Oh yeah, Durant
can play the, you know what I mean? But he to me feels like that area between LeBron and Durant, and it's scary. Will Luka be a GOAT? I don't know, man. I know that he's super fun to watch.
He's way worse at defense than both of those guys.
For sure, but you know what? He's not a negative on defense. He's okay. He's at worst an average defender, and like, what a weird critique, right? You know what I mean? They'd be like, "Why aren't you a great defender? You're so great." Like, it's like, look,
Durant is a great defender. I mean, if we're talking
he's a great,
I think at his peak he is.
I think he's good. I say he's good. I wouldn't say great.
I think at his peak he is. Like, if he's in the right system, and I think that.
No, I agree with that. Here's the thing: that guy's so mentally weak. But I do think about last year in the playoffs. Was it last year? No, the year before when he went to the playoffs by himself. And I think they only played that one game. Maybe they made 2 games.
Are you talking about when they played the Celtics and got swept? Last year. Yeah. They got swept in 4 games.
No, because Kyrie was there sometimes, though, right? This was when there was no Kyrie.
Oh.
I think it's the year before. Because there's no Harden either. So I think it's the year before. I can't remember. I don't like Durant. I think he's mentally weak. I think there's no question he's one of the 5 best offensive players of all time. I think he's so mentally weak. But in that series, it wasn't last year, it was the year before, because no one was there, because he should have had guys. He should have had dudes, but there's nobody, right?
That was the year. Yeah, it's 2 years ago. Kyrie got hurt, and Harden was on he had a bum hamstring.
Well, Harden was still in Houston. Okay. And they traded Jarrett Allen, you know what I mean? And he played so hard, and his defense was excellent. I just think he's so mentally, he's like one of those guys, to me, top 5 player, hot takes. People would be like, Kevin Durant, hot takes. He's so mentally weak. If he wasn't in his head so much and so worried about everything, I think he'd be like, this guy is one of the best players of all time.
Oh, he already is. But I mean, he's top 10, top 15, easy.
No.
Yes. No. Get out of here. Okay, we're closing.
Top 10 for Durant?
Durant, yeah.
Top 10.
Okay,
I don't think Kobe's top 10, so I don't know who you bumping.
Kobe's not top 10? Man, you're gonna somehow Kobe stands are gonna find out about this and they're gonna like
Dude,
roast you.
Listen, hot takes.
Last question. Well, you were kind of already addressed this. Do you have League Pass?
Oh, of course.
Okay. Is there a team that you feel like you're going to gravitate towards an unusual amount? Don't say Orlando because I feel like that we've already addressed that. Is there like mine? I think I'm going to watch a lot more than I probably would otherwise. Is Detroit? Like I think Cade's fun, Jaden's fun, Beef Stew's fun. I like Sadiq Bey.
I like Sadiq Bey. I actually do like Sadiq. So in the past, historically, like I'm always watching the Celtics with my wife. I would always watch Utah because I love Ingles.
Yeah.
I love Donovan Mitchell. Utah was always sort of there, but usually each year there's like a team that's like our actual second team. 2 years ago, it was the Westbrook, unbelievably, the Westbrook Beal Washington Wizards team.
That was a fun team.
So fun to watch. And it's the last time and the first time that Russ was motivated, and you could see him learn things from Beal. They had a couple of young guys that were they had Avdija and they had Rui. It was just a really sort of charming, try-hard team that you could root for, even though I think all those guys were probably really unlikable people.
I don't know. I think Beal is a very underrated player, like offensively. He's fun to watch.
But he's also, I think he may be an awful human being.
I don't know anything about Bradley Beal.
Yeah, he's definitely an anti-vaxxer. He's definitely sort of
a dummy. Okay.
He's definitely sort of a dummy and has said some dummy things. But no, that guy is when I talk about Beal, it's like Carmelo Anthony was such a gift. He's that guy. If his head was different, we'd be talking about him. He's such a gifted offensive player. As a Knicks fan, you would just see him do the worst thing, like not winning things, make a pass to the wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything he did would be wrong. But then if they're like, hey, we need 8 points, he would literally just like an angel score. Like he could score whenever he wanted to. It's always Beal is the better version of that. It's this like Beal could if no one guarded him, like he would never miss a shot, right? And I don't mean like he would never miss a shot. He's so talented. And I think Washington might be really interesting this year. Anyway, I always have a team. My favorite secondary team was that Sacramento Kings team before Vlade got rid of whomever the coach was and brought in Luke Walton. And it just got rid of this team that had amazing young guys that were fun to watch. And the rest of the team was old European vets who are always fun to watch. That's my favorite team, probably the side team to watch. I think this year, you know who else I always love to watch is Oklahoma City, because who knows what's going to happen out there.
They beat the Clippers last night.
Shai Gilgeous is great.
Josh Giddey's fun.
Everyone they have, the unicorn Pokovich is interesting. I love Dort. Dort is 1,000% a Kyle Starks player.
Yeah.
Should you not have been here? Are you getting it by defense? And that dude, remember, they were letting him shoot threes. Like Harden was stepping back when
he's not bad at shooting threes now.
No, he can hit them now. He can that guy. I love that. Are you looking to improve? Should you have never been here? PJ Tucker is similar, though he's not my kind of player. I probably this year, I lost it. It's not Oklahoma City. I think Minnesota could be fun to watch. I think Orlando's going to be fun to watch. But you want teams that are going to maybe compete a little bit.
I like teams that are young with upside. Like the Pelicans. Pelicans are fun.
Pelicans. My wife won't watch the Pelicans. I don't know why. The Pelicans would be an amazing team to watch this year. Ingram got a concussion though, but I love CJ.
They still beat the Mavs last night without Zion, Ingram, or Herb Jones. I don't know. That team's long. That team's really good. I don't know. I like them a lot. I would say Detroit's probably my number one. I mean, Pels are too good to be kind of fit into my criteria.
You want someone who's going to struggle a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. You want.
I had my answer, but I forgot it. We watch Miami every year. Like Miami is always like fun to watch.
Boring. They're not Bulls boring, but they're boring. They're like a I don't know, an assembly line on offense. It's just like it's beautiful in some ways because it's all system, but at the same time, it's just like I don't know. It's kind of weird. I'm just gonna throw this out there. I think you'd enjoy the Pacers this year. Tyrese and Benedict Mathurin are very fun to watch.
No,
never. You live in Indiana.
Never, because they're awful. Two, I can't
awful.
Watch Pacers games where I'm at. Period. Ever.
Oh, because they're blacked out.
I wanted to, because they're blacked out to me. Even though it's 3 hours away.
We have one national game this year, so you got that and coming up pretty soon. I think it's against Boston too, so lucky you.
I had a really good answer, and I'm looking. I can't think of who it was. I do think right now it's probably going to be Orlando.
That's fair.
Jazz are out. I can't watch them. I tried to watch them. I can't watch the Rockets because they're the Knicks enemies, and I can never do that. I do like Porter Jr. I think Porter Jr. looks like he's going to be really interesting this year.
I love that you could be referring to two different Porter Juniors. Be referring to Kevin Porter Jr. right now.
Kevin Porter Jr. Unfortunately, my answer remains. I think if I'm going to do a second team, it's probably going to be Orlando. But in the past, I really like watching the Hornets because I like Gordo because there's like Celtics Jr. I don't know if that's going to be true this year. I don't think they're going to be much fun to watch. But
they're winning. About that. They have bad vibes. They have real bad vibes to that team. I don't know. Okay.
The Wizards have an interesting lineup, right?
I like the Wizards. You mentioned Monte Morris earlier. I love Will Barton. I'm a huge Will Barton fan.
Well, dude, that's the thing. Will Barton is so sleepy good. They got Monte Morris.
They got depth.
Kuzma's
good. Kuzma is good.
But you never know what you're going to get with him. It's like watching it's so perplexing. It's the same thing with Porzingis.
Did you watch him last year? Kuzma.
Yeah, we tried to, but
Kuzma is not. I think people still think he's Lakers Kuzma. He's not Lakers Kuzma.
No, he's good.
Yeah.
But you never know. There's no consistency in his game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He tries hard now.
Porzingis is the same way. You never know what he's going to do. And I hate watching that.
They both have facial hair. I feel like they're in a new direction for their careers.
Does KP get rid of his severe haircut? I haven't seen yet.
No, he's got a beard.
He got that very hard wax. You're like, what are you doing?
Porzingis has a beard now. I think he's entered into the serious man mode of his career. But no, I think Kuzma is really good. But we can keep talking about basketball forever.
Yeah, I could. Sorry.
We're gonna end it here. I hate this place. December is when the trade comes out.
I believe so.
Everyone read it. It's a great comic. Kyle, thank you so much for coming on to talk about I Hate This Place, the NBA season, and everything else. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's always a joy.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Off Panel with writer Kyle Starks. You can find him on Twitter at the Kyle Starks and his work in I Hate This Place at Skybound. Love Off Panel, want to support it? Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts today and give the show a rating or review while you're at it, but 5 stars only. You can also support the show by backing it on Patreon. Find the show at patreon.com/offpanel. And when you back it on there, you get early access to each week's podcast as well as weekly content and more. Want even more? Subscribe to my subscription comic site Sketched at sketch.com for long-form articles, interviews, and the rest of the site's content. You can find Off Panel and Sketched on social media by following on Twitter and Instagram at @sketchcomic or following me at @slicefriedgold. Big thanks to all my existing patrons, including Johnny Cannon, Chris Doré, Nir Levy, Dennis Hoffman, Jason Hussa, Cancel Comics, Kieran Gillen, Jonathan Kent-Uratam, Henry Johnson, Django Boren, James Tynan IV, Chris Langford, Jason Wood, Tom Peachy, Ben Damstead, Rom V, Devin Fitzsimons, Nick Walker, Patrick Coyle, Isaac Warren, Scott Carpenter, Rent Narb Studios Comics, Nicholas Palmieri, Capes and Tights Podcast, Klaus Vandeven, Brian, Submed Industries, Raj Patel, Jack McQueen, Kyle, Carl Kerschel, Robert Masella, Elza Chartier, Luke Nakashoji, Elliot Metz, Dr. Luke, Scott Hazelwood, Scott Bawan, Michael Tunk, Canadian by Proxy, Bradley Rader, Carl Choi, Brandon Pillis, Patrick Brower, Declan Shalvey, Dan Garino, Josh Williamson, Adam Freeman, Ben Wild, Brian Klein Q, SB, Nick Bennett, Daniel Whitfield, Susanna Polo, Reed Hinckley Barnes, Mario Tiambang, AbductedTheComic.com, Andrew Carita, Matt Mahoney, Stephen Hall, Pensacola Pop Comics, Kim Eslin, Philip Myra, Christian Sheldon, Kenny Porter, Chris Pachalo, Torrin Grunbeck, Fuzz Bubbles, Christopher Todd, Transmitter Down, Waltz Comics and Books, Carl Mizell, Danny Ollie, Paul Salate, Akil Wilson, Alex Dimitriopoulos, Terry Dodson, Wesley Gift, Sean Kirkham, Alistair Ross, Julio Anta, Brett H. Schmidt, Jason Goodmanson, Paul Reinwald, Vita Ayala, Dave Slusher, WQ Comics, Akil Kokachi, Sean Pinnell, Ken Heidelman, Philip Seavey, Al Ewing, David Kelly, Rob Wilson IV, Nick Polito, Brendan Fletcher, Jonathan Nilsson, Jason Massey, Adam Bogart, Matthew Taylor, Nick Patera, Jacob Sorelli, Ford Gilmore, David Baraldi, Nick Hall, Bjorn Basin, John Hendricks, Steve Anderson, Ian Maxwell, Cliff Chang, Colin McMahon, Chris Palmer, Scott McGovern, Nathan Fairbairn, Kat McKenzie, Adam Highfield, Fiona Staples, Mark Abnett, Mike Murphy, Michael Shirley, Tom Barnett, Jim Demonakos, Norbert, Nick Lowe, James Kaplan, and Mission Comics and Art in San Francisco. You guys are all the best. A quick thanks to Upright T-Rex Music, who wrote and performed Off Panel's theme song just for the show. Check out their music on Spotify because it's completely delightful. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode.